This is Dateline News and Conversation. After postponing his address from earlier this year, President Putin gave his address to the Russian Federal Assembly and many guests who gathered today at noon, Moscow time. It happens to be 3 days before the 1 year anniversary of the special military operation in Ukraine. Now, because the speech was an hour and 50 minutes, almost 2 hours, and contained comments on the war, Donbass, the economy, many domestic plans and projects, and future development, my guest and I, Dr. Vladimir Kozin, will cover just a few of the more salient and relevant issues. So, Vladimir, welcome back to the show.
Yes, thank you very much, Regis. Happy to see you.
It's always a pleasure. Vladimir, I'm going to begin with this quote from Vladimir Putin at the beginning of the speech. He said, "With today's address, I am speaking at a difficult time. We all know this very well. A milestone time for our country at a time of cardinal, irreversible changes throughout the world, the most important historical events that determine the future of our country and our people, when each of us has a huge responsibility." Vladimir, I thought the speech was very good. There were moments in the speech where he sounded like a cheerleader. He was very animated, encouraging the people in the Russian Federation. And then there were times when he just gave his usual facts and figures about a lot of things domestically and economically. It was a big part of the speech. I'm not going to try to address that in this program with you, Vladimir, because there are other issues that are more important, I think, to the rest of the world and things that they must hear and hear clearly. So, Vladimir, he began right away with the war against the Donbass, and he stated that Russia did everything possible to solve the problem peacefully, but Russia was deceived by the United States and the West in scamming Russia with the Minsk II agreements. They just pretended to go along with it to buy time. We know this is true, Vladimir. Merkel, Hollande, even Poroshenko all admitted it. It was a ploy. Vladimir, your thoughts on this first statement, the first part of his speech, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Regis. The fourth person should be added. Mr. Zelensky, the current president of Ukraine, also admitted that Ukrainian side used the Minsk agreements of 2014 and 2015 just to save time for war preparations against Donbass. So there are totally four persons that acknowledged this kind of tricky games with us and with Donbass. President Putin announced that the Russian leadership is going to achieve victory in the aggression that has started by Ukraine initially and subsequently was backed by the US and other NATO allies together with Washington. And this war continues. Besides quantity in delivery of heavy arms and equipment, military arms and equipment, there is also quantitative changes in weapons delivery to the armed forces of Ukraine from NATO member states plus non-NATO member countries, as it is known, because the State Department issues fact sheets concerning arms delivery from the Western countries to the armed forces of Ukraine. He also said that the vast majority of the Russian citizens support the decision to continue with the special military operation and to suppress this aggression. And we understand that we will win this aggression against us. This portion was a very short one in comparison with the rest of his address. And you are right that when you mentioned that the big portion, actually 80% of all his speech, was devoted to domestic affairs, to economic data, financial data, salaries, pensions, etc., etc. We are going to have a huge harvest of various types of cereals. A total grain production volume in my country is expected to reach 150 million tons altogether. And we are ready, as President put it, to export our grain and other cereals at the amount of 55 or 60 million tons. So it's an extraordinary big harvest in our history. We never managed to collect such a huge harvest in terms of cereals, wheat, barley, and etc., etc. And the second figure that impressed me, that the rate of unemployment in my country, that was previously around 5% in terms of the overall workforce, dropped to 3.5%. This is also for the first time in the history of the Russian Federation and the Soviet Union. 3.5 unemployment in terms of the huge countries is quite normal. Quite normal because people would like to change their professions, to move into other places, and for the time being they are considered as non-employed. So there was also a part of other military issues specified by the president, especially at the end of his address. And probably you are having specific questions to that. So the floor is yours, Regis.
Vladimir, well, I'm happy you brought up the domestic issues because I think it's important for the rest of the world to understand that their attempt, Washington and NATO's attempt, the Western countries, was to weaken Russia's economy, to demoralize the people in Russia, and to frighten them and possibly bring about a regime change. But the part of Putin's speech where he listed all of the success that the Russian economy has had, he talked about the banking sector even made a small profit last year. You mentioned the agricultural sector, enormous growth, and not just in grains, but fertilizer, food, vegetable products, everything. I mean, we were just shopping the other day in a large shopping center, and there were no empty shelves. This was a massive store. It had everything you could imagine. And I should have taken a picture, but I think I left my camera in the car or something.
It doesn't matter. Regis, the situation in terms of foodstuff in Moscow is the same. No empty shelves, full of everything. Shops are empty, no visitors because no queuing, no visitors, everything is available. I have 5 shops around my multi-story house where I live in the southern part of Moscow. 5 grocery shops, foodstuffs, etc., full of everything. I'm even afraid that a part of these foodstuffs are being destroyed because the time of staying on the shelves will soon be expired, like milk products, dairy products, butter, etc., etc. So it's not a problem at all, and never have been. And we are happy with that. And minimum salary was promised to be up. Then pensions for the retired persons also much higher. Well, nothing to complain. Nothing to complain.
Yeah, it's
Interest rate in my country, just one figure, because in the West people would like to know what's the interest rate if you deposit some money into a private or state bank. In Moscow, current interest rate in terms of rubles, local currency, is from 8% per year to 9.5% per year. Tremendous,
yes,
tremendous
and
percentage.
yeah, and the other thing that Putin mentioned, that how the economy was thriving, Russian exports to other countries are increasing.
Yes.
He's talking about opening new corridors for
Mhm.
trade and transportation from
Right.
one end of the country to the other, all the way to Vladivostok, and it'll be down through the Middle East as well. And so this was an important point, I think, that he made, that Russia's focus is to the east and the future, and it has said bye bye to the United States and the West.
And
And he said,
European countries. And
that's what I mean,
European
the
countries,
Western
bye
country,
bye.
European countries. And
Yeah.
basically, it's their fault. They did it to themselves. Um, Vladimir, I want to go back to the question of war and the tensions and threats between the United States. Um, and I will come back to the war and what is really happening. Putin is suspending Russia's participation in the New START treaty. Can
Yes.
you explain why? And as a second part of the question, he also signed a decree putting new ground-based strategic systems on combat duty.
Yes.
I don't want to read into that, but Vladimir, what do those two things mean in terms of strategic weapons being deployed
Mhm.
and no more efforts at New START? What does that mean?
Yes. Let's tackle. Let's discuss the first question concerning suspension of the Russian Federation from the New START treaty. In Russian, it's called START 3. It doesn't matter. I will call the New START, which was signed by President Dmitry Medvedev and Mr. Barack Obama in Prague in 2010. So nearly 13 years ago. Why we have decided to do so, and President announced it openly. Look, in our history of our relationship with the USA in terms of our arms control, we have tabled a lot of proposals, starting from uh, removing or banning nuclear weapons for good, forever. Soon after the United States of America invented it, produced, and used in practical terms against Japan. At that time, the Soviet Union didn't possess nuclear weapons. But soon after, the United States of America refused to make a zero nuclear option at the end of 1940. We invented our own nuclear capabilities. Then there was another attempt. We offered to ban nuclear weapons for starting from our two nuclear powers, the USA and the Soviet Union at that time, because we were only two nuclear possessor states. Again, we've got negative response from the USA. Then the USA deployed tactical nuclear weapons in Europe in mid 1950. Then President Jimmy Carter wanted to produce neutron nuclear bombs. We also said that why we have to have it, better not to produce it all. He agreed. Nuclear neutron bombs have been banned by both countries and never appeared. Then Triad appeared later on, involving ICBMs, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and heavy strategic bombers. We also said that would be fine to downsize the number of such delivery systems and nuclear warheads of with strategic characteristics. And in that move, we were very happy because our two leaders understood that it would be unnecessary and inexpedient to possess huge arsenals of nukes in our respective armed forces. 20,000 pieces, 30,000 warheads to destroy the globe many, many times, it would be irrelevant and illogical. And we started nuclear arms control, downsizing gradually our nuclear armed forces. Started from limitation and then for physical destruction. But we never touched upon tactical nuclear weapons, never at all. And besides us, nobody started debating the reduction of tactical nuclear forces in their respective potential. We reached a very good understanding that offensive nuclear arms should be linked to defensive strategic forces in the form of interceptor missiles capable to intercept nuclear forces. And we agreed that there should be a natural linkage between defensive and offensive nuclear weapons. But unfortunately, in 2002, the US government decided to withdraw from the ABM Treaty and disrupted this objective linkage and a black objective relationship between strategic offensive and defensive forces. Then in 2009, the US deployed ballistic missile operational base in Romania, started in Romania, which was put on combat duty in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. And a number of ABM or missile defense capable ships appeared in the waters at seas surrounding Europe and from the Pacific Ocean as well. So Atlantic and Pacific Ocean, and many appeared especially in the Mediterranean. And around 3 years ago, President Trump withdrew from INF Treaty, Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, banning two classes of nuclear missiles, shorter range and medium-range missiles like Pershing 1A and Pershing 2 American, plus Tomahawk land-based cruise missiles, and we also banned the respective Russian missiles called SS-20, something like that. So the situation is not so good. So besides that, the United States is practicing widely to send heavy strategic bombers to European airspace. Then medium-range bombers that participate in the Baltic Air Policing Nuclear Air Force operation that started in 2004, a long time ago. It's 24 o'clock around 7 days a week and 365, 66 days per year. Capable to carry tactical nuclear weapons, very close from us, because this operation has been deployed in 4 European countries, namely Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Poland, and southern air policing operation began in the southern part of Europe, involving Romania and Bulgaria recently. So we put on the table our proposal to enforce a moratorium on deployment of new nuclear forces in Europe and in Asia Pacific, or in Indo-Pacific. So again, refusal. Well, last time in December 21, we tabled a very comprehensive, big volume of proposals to NATO alliance as organization, as a whole, plus separately to the United States of America, and plus to the European Union and to the OSCE. Unfortunately, we've got negative responses from the USA and NATO and OSCE and European Union. They do not have nuclear weapons as organizations. So, and now we are having what? We are having a direct and multifaceted combined direct war of Ukraine and NATO against the Russian Federation as the country. Not against Donbass as it was initially in 2014, but currently we are having gross, mighty military aggression of Ukraine and NATO against the Russian Federation per se as the country. It's very risky. It's very risky to fight, and we are not happy that the Third World War may be triggered off and started very soon. So we decided to do several things, because nuclear deterrence is, like in the United States of America, is very important for our national defense. We decided to consolidate our own nuclear weapons deterrence, making it a little bit tougher than in the past. And right you are. Today, on February 21st, Vladimir Putin ushered in the era of suspension of the New START with the United States. What does it mean in practical terms? Well, first of all, Moscow should not implement all its provisions. Provisions are related to nuclear warheads, 1,550 strategic nuclear warheads for each side, Plus, in terms of delivery systems or launches, the treaty stipulates 800 delivery vehicles for each side, both operationally deployed and operationally non-deployed. First. Second, we can increase the number of delivery systems and strategic warheads because there are no limitations. If the treaty has been suspended, we're not going to implement it. Another decision is concerning on-site inspections. The new START presupposed that each site should have 18 inspections per annum, per year, on the territory of the opposite side. But in terms of American inspections, we decided to ban them because they banned our Russian inspectors to visit the United States. Because no direct Aeroflot or any Delta US companies operational flights between Moscow, Washington, Moscow, and the New York City and back. So it's a lot of difficulties to obtain American visas for inspection teams from Russia. Another hurdle is that the US side doesn't show us how many warheads are hidden in the nose cone of, for example, a Minuteman III missile. And we don't understand what's inside. But they should open the cover, and our inspectors should verify how many nuclear warheads are located there. 1, 2, 3, 5, 4. No, so it's camouflaged, concealed. It's a violation. It's a violation. What does it mean extra in additionally? So if we suspend our participation in the new START, it means that we are not going to debate the basic principles or criteria for the next, I call it the newest START, or START 4 in the Russian terminology, when the new START expires in February 2026. So we have by that time draft basic principles of the next START treaty. I'm calling it the newest START. Yeah. So we also suspend it automatically, because if new START is suspended, there is no use of talking about the newest START that might have appeared after 2026. So, what about nuclear exercises? Yes, you know that there is an international treaty prohibited all nuclear powers, all nuclear weapon states to conduct nuclear explosions on land, underwater, and in the air. But underground nuclear states were permitted before we managed, the human race, humanity, managed to draft CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. We ratified Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, so it's a dead silence on our nuclear underground testing sites. Nothing is being exploded since then. From the year 2000, exactly 2000, the year 2000, Russia is committed to no nuclear underground testing. Dead silence. Americans have not ratified the CTBT. They tried several times, but the US Senate failed to ratify it. And, but we have to admit that there is a dead silence at Nevada underground test site in the United States, where usually underground nuclear tests have been conducted in the past. But there are information is coming that the United States is going to resume nuclear underground testing. And Putin was clear today when he said, we will not be the first to resume our nuclear underground testing. But, he added, if the United States of America will resume nuclear testing, it can resume nuclear testing for the United States and for the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom also conducted nuclear testing for their strategic nuclear capabilities at the Nevada testing ground. In the UK, it is impossible. The country is very small. It's like a big island. So that's what he said. And he said, Putin said that last week he signed a presidential decree on putting new ground-based strategic systems on combat duty. But there are no details to what on combat duty. By 100%, by 90%, by 95%, no details were exposed. And what kind of new ground-based strategic systems were put on combat duty? Also a big question mark. Nothing has been said about that, no details. So it's like that. By the way, Vladimir Putin also mentioned nuclear capabilities of France and the United Kingdom, and suggested to count them together with the United States of America nuclear arsenals, because they are allies in the West. They are allies in NATO, military pact. They have a joint military nuclear planning and conducting nuclear drills. And for example, nuclear submarines equipped with nuclear ballistic missiles of 3 Western nations, the USA, the UK, and France, are also planning to divide their zones of patrol in the world oceans, so that not to duplicate, to concentrate in one area, but to be dispersed logically in the world oceans. And we are the target number 1. The People's Republic of China is the target number 2. Or sometimes we are replacing each other in terms of Western NATO nuclear strategic planners. Sometimes the People's Republic of China ranks first place and the Russian Federation second place. So that's it about this portion of the address. Regis?
Yeah. Thank you, Vladimir. I want to go to the war now. This is all preparation for war. Everybody knows that what the United States is doing is not defensive. It is offensive. It's part of their quest to be and to maintain the world hegemon, the world number 1 unilateral country at all costs. Many people are realizing now that the danger of these tactics risks escalating the possibility of a nuclear exchange exponentially. More people should be afraid of that, and more people should be out protesting that, because it's got nothing to do with Ukraine. It's got everything to do with the survival of humanity. So I want to shift the focus now back to the war in Ukraine. It is a war. I know Russia insists on calling it a special military operation, but from the other side, it's a war. The United States and its vassals in Europe and NATO openly say that their goal is the strategic defeat of Russia. If that's not a declaration of war, their purpose and their goal, I don't know what a war really is. And we don't have to go through the billions of dollars, over $100 billion the U.S. alone has sent to Ukraine in money and weapons. They continue to do that. We don't have to get into all the details of what the United States is doing, including aerial reconnaissance, special operations forces in there training troops, not just from the United States, but Canada, France, Germany, the UK. They have commanders on the ground. They have troops on the ground. And we know that. So to call it a proxy war, for me, is just a matter of semantics and word games. And the other thing about it, Vladimir, and Putin addressed this today, they openly and brazenly support Nazis, which our forefathers fought and gave their lives to defeat in World War II. They openly support and fund terrorist organizations and mercenaries to fight against us, Russia. Your comments on the strength and the force of those words by Vladimir Putin about the United States and NATO.
Well, President Putin clearly stated that it is impossible to defeat Russia on the battlefield on Ukrainian soil. And Russia would achieve all its war aims. He announced on February 24th last year, when he explained our military action against Ukrainian attacks and Ukrainian aggression. We could not wait extra years, because look, I've got fresh figures concerning the number of shells that Ukraine used. Shells made in the Soviet time and the Russian time, plus Western NATO shells and rockets. Against Donbass only, 100,000 artillery shells, rockets, etc. 100,000 such shells against Donbass only for the last year. Can you imagine that any state like Texas in the United States has been targeted by a huge barrage of bombardment, like 100,000 shells and other artillery and rocket pieces? Impossible even to imagine. Even to imagine. Look, 14,000 people in Donbass have been killed during the last years before we started special military operation. 34,000 people in Donbass have been wounded, sometimes heavily, sometimes not. And during this particular period of time, when Ukrainians started not a proxy war, it's a proxy war, started open war. together with NATO alliance, people in Donbass have lost extra 5,000 civilians. All figures are dealt with civilians only, not with military personnel. No, no, no. Only civilians, and only in Donbass. Plus 9,000 people wounded. So if we are able to calculate 14,000 killed at the first stage, plus 5,000 recently, nearly 19 or 20,000 for the last 9 years. And if 34 wounded at the first period of time, plus 9,000 recent battles, 43,000 people killed. Majority of civilians killed in these two stages have been killed by American weapons produced in Oklahoma. Produced in Oklahoma, American, 100%. They are fired by the American staffers, American military personnel, not mercenaries. They are active servicemen, but dressed differently, not like American bona fide GIs. They are targeted at specific civilian targets in Donbass by using the US intelligence data gathered from various sources, electronic intelligence, outer space intelligence, etc., etc. All HIMARS, multiple launch rocket systems, are staffed, operated, and fired by bona fide, crystal clear American soldiers and officers, not by Ukrainians. It's very difficult system to understand for the person who never tried it in his life. So we are having not only conventional warfare against us, chemical warfare started several cases, plus the Americans and Ukrainians were on the verge of unleashing biological warfare against us. We stopped it by special military operation. Landmines prohibited by the international law are used by Ukrainians. Dead silence from NATO member countries. Other countries are following, honoring this landmine personnel's convention. Ukrainians is not following, but it's not punished. It's encouraged. Encouraged more and more at every meeting. By the way, we have amongst ourselves renamed the Munich Security Conference as the Munich Insecurity Conference, because all of them except Hungary and the People's Republic of China, who were there invited and had a chance to address the audience, they criticized the delivery of arms to Ukraine. So the situation is very dramatic, tragic, dangerous, on the brink of unleashing the World War III. Very close. Nuclear,
and everybody,
nuclear and conventional. Both nuclear and conventional.
Yeah, everybody knows that World War III will be nuclear. I don't think there's any doubt.
Because escalation is very easy to attain. You start with the non-nuclear capabilities, conventional means of warfare, and then gradually, by stages, are just changed into nuclear attacks and counterattacks, starting from tactical nuclear weapons, and then after that, strategic nuclear weapons. And it will be that the end of the entire civilization.
Yeah.
Naturally, yes.
So
All of us are talking about this. Even
yeah,
American experts are repeating the same scenario.
you know, as an American, one of the things that confounds me is the fact that the American people, with their taxes, but even in their consciousness, do not condemn the killing and maiming of all those people in the Donbass. They maybe they don't even know about it because they're not told. The other thing is, and this is getting around, at least on alternative media, that their country is funding Nazis.
Correct? Yes.
And the
They-
Nazis
Mhm.
that the United States, allied with Russia, defeated in World War II. It makes no sense to me. It's really infuriating, and it's hard to forgive. But again, now on this special military operation, I want your thoughts on the recent threats by Zelensky to retake Crimea, and Victoria Nuland publicly stating she speaks for the United States. She's Undersecretary of State.
Mhm.
She said it's totally within Ukraine's rights to strike Crimea and really strike anywhere in Russia. They're legitimate targets. Vladimir, are they just bluffing, or are these people that insane
Mhm.
to think that they could take back Crimea and Russia not do anything about it?
No, I think those people like Victoria Nuland and Anthony Blinken, they are not bluffing. They are threatening and they encouraging Ukrainian neo-Nazi to do it because they promised to deliver gradually, not immediately, not today or tomorrow, but gradually to deliver to Ukrainian armed forces a long-range missiles and military hardware, including combat aircraft with missiles, bombs, etc., etc. But Putin clearly stated that we will not stop. There is a colloquial expression, I think, from appeared many decades ago: guns, artillery guns instead of butter. But we will be able, I mean, the Russian Federation, we will be able to produce guns and to produce butter, both, while our population will not suffer. We will win this war. Probably not tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but probably this year. We will win this war. Combined war, Ukrainian plus NATO. We are not fighting with Ukrainian uh, grassroots, rank and file people, Ukrainians, normal personalities. We are fighting with Ukrainian Nazi. We are fighting with Ukrainian militarists. We are fighting with President Zelensky, who is seeking nuclear weapons from any sources. From any sources. It doesn't matter who provides him with nuclear capabilities, Israel or the United States of America. He will accept it with great joy, and will use it. So the address I've heard today and made some comments to the Russian mass media in a written form and in form of video conference. The address is very encouraging. Putin set clear-cut goals. We will consolidate our nuclear shield, our nuclear capabilities. We will improve our newly developed perspective weaponry, arms. We will not compromise them. destroy or show or dismantle simply because NATO or the United States of America wanted to do, want them to be destroyed or just annihilated. Our economy will be much efficient than in the past, and we have already exceeded the volume of external trade we had with the European countries plus the United States of America. And now the volume of our external trade, including every types of export materials and goods and natural materials in the eastern direction, in Asia Pacific, in Indo Pacific, and they're very happy. They're very happy, and we will continue with them to provide them with our natural resources and machine and equipment, grain, etc., etc., etc. And by the way, when I gave my explanations to your first questions, that why we suspended participation in the New Start, I have forgotten to mention this barbaric terrorist attack of the United States against Nord Stream pipelines in the Baltic is the act of war against us. And I neglect all voices that the United States of America and other NATO countries are not involved in such warfare with the Russian Federation. Involved specifically, practically, and directly. And for that wrongdoing, all countries will be punished. Unfortunately, Western leaders, academics, politicians, many people, even in the anti-war movement or anti-nuclear organizations, have forgotten or neglected one specific fact. Russian Empire, before that, Russian territory, inhabited by Slavs, Russians, speaking Russians, then the Soviet Union, then the Russian Federation, have been subject of severe attacks from the outside. Invaders wanted to invade us. For the time being after their aggression, we suffered a little bit, lost partly our territory, population, production facilities, agricultural products, etc., etc. But nevertheless, in the end, at the end of the day, we won all battles. We smashed all aggressors. All aggressors. There have not been any exceptional cases. Yes, do not forget this. Jens Stoltenberg, Joseph Biden, Emmanuel Macron, Sunak, and other NATO leaders. Do not forget this. We won all aggressions against us at any stage of our long history. And we will win this battle for sure. And you will lose. And you will lose. And your people will topple you down from your nice chairs and comfortable offices. Believe me, it's a warning. It's a caveat. Full stop.
Wow.
From my side.
I know that the Russians are united. That I think is very obvious. They know their history. They know what they're up against. Putin said it. It's their future. It's survival of Russia as a country, as a people, as a sovereign nation. There's one part of the speech that I was kind of surprised. The change of language. Along a significant part of this speech, Putin focused on the depravity of the United States and the West. And he really gave it to them. I mean, in terms of destroying family values, no longer a moral conscience, no more spirituality. He went on to say that the United States has littered the world with their bases. In their recent military adventures, the Middle East, Iraq, Syria, Libya, 900,000 people have been murdered. They've created some 30 million refugees. And apart from these horrific war crimes, he also focused on something that a lot of Americans accuse Russia of, and that's the persecution of gays and lesbians. And Putin specifically said, what people do in private is their business, but according to him, it is not okay with the scriptures, the holy books, he said. And he said, no one's privacy is being invaded. I want Americans to hear that, those people that are listening to that, who think that Russia actively persecutes gays. He made that very clear. And Vladimir, he also said, we will protect our children. He got several standing ovations, but when he said that, that whole audience felt the energy. That section of the speech, to me, I saw Putin in a way that I've not seen him before. He was really energized. Were you surprised that he openly castigated the United States for these and other things? And do you think that it was the right thing to do?
Well, I think that this is the voice of the voice in bewilderness. Am I pronouncing this colloquial phrase perfectly? Because it's this kind of pattern as having parents number one or parents number two, or rename the Lord as transgender Lord for any religion. And our people do not afraid, grown-ups, that their children will not bury them when they die, simply because they consider them as a figure, number one, number two. What are they? What is this? Number one and number two? Nothing. Why to bury? Why to cry? Why to erect a monument just to remember my beloved mom and dad? They are numbers, like a digital system, like a PC, like a smartphone, etc. Don't Americans do not Americans afraid? Are not Americans afraid of this kind of reciprocal behavior of their beloved kids towards them when they approach, the hour of death? Are not they afraid of going to the paradise or to hell? Is it all the same for them? I don't know. For me, it's not the same. I'm not going to go to the hell. And I want my kids to bury me with dignity and not call me or inscript on my on the monument of my grave in the graveyard, parents number one or simply two, 1.2.1.1.2. Mental disorder.
Yeah,
That's mental disorder. Psychiatric clinics is badly needed for all these poor creatures.
yeah, and
Poor creatures, as
Putin
well
said,
as normal creatures like in Victoria Nuland, I mean, urging Ukrainians to smash Crimea. But what if Crimeans stand up and smash the house of Victoria Nuland? I don't know where she lives. And urge other nations, Chinese, Indians, other people, Iranians, Syrians, Afghans, to smash, to destroy the state of instead of the United States of America, where Victoria Nuland is living, or Anthony Blinken is having a lot of fun near his swimming pool.
well, Putin also said that he doesn't think that it's redeemable what's happening in the West. And he also said that he was talking about the United States. Let's face it. They are dismissive of the people of the world, spitting on them, he said. And they are just as dismissive of people in their own country. I want to end on this note, Vladimir. Putin said, in the end, the truth is with us.
Yes.
I want to thank you again for your insight and for your passion with which you speak about your country, your country's values, your country's future. Always a pleasure to have you, Vladimir.
The same from my part, dear Regis. Well, thank you very much for your questions and for your humanistic curiosity and the wish to desire what is going on and what is the way out from this impasse imposed upon all of us from devil societies and devil leaders. Thank you very much. Take care. Goodbye.